Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to start a little detour where we're going to look at connecting to a JDBC. We're going to look at connecting to a SQL database, I should say, using JDBC. So this isn't part of Swing, and this applies to any kind of Java programming, including like servlet programming. But the reason I'm including this in this series of tutorials is because I've found that a lot of people who write Swing applications want to connect to a SQL database. So I'm not going to dwell on creating databases or anything like that. I'm just going to show you the minimum you need to connect to an existing database and to save stuff in it, retrieve stuff from it using JDBC. So I'm going to start by, I've actually already to actually connect to, in this case I'm going to connect to a MySQL database that's running on this machine that I'm working on here. And to connect to a MySQL database you need the MySQL Java connector jar, which I've got here. And if you search in Google for that, you'll find it very quickly, and you can download it, I think, from the MySQL website. Just search for like MySQL Java connector and you'll find this jar, and you need that to connect to databases using JDBC. So to start with here, I'm going to go to Eclipse, and I'm actually not going to use my user interface here, because one of the advantages of keeping your backend separate, or keeping it separated in code terms from your front end, is that you can test the back end separately. I'm going to do that here. I'm going to actually create a new class, and I'm going to call that test. Let's call it test database, and let's give it a main method. And I will type in here, just let's sys out running database test, and I could actually use a JUnit test here as well, but I'll just stick with a simple main method for this tutorial. Let's right click that and go to run as Java application, so it runs down here. And now I'm going to go to my database class, and I'm going to give it a method called public void connect, which is going to connect it to a database. And I'm also going to give it a let's see, so the closing bracket there, I'm going to give it a public void disconnect, and I'm going to test those from my test application here. So I'm going to say database db equals new database, and then I'm going to say db.connect and db.disconnect. So we're just going to connect and disconnect for the moment. And yeah, let's see, so that's public void connect disconnect, and yeah, I've added the import there already, or it added automatically, and it's saying that the method, oh yeah, I've just got to save it. Sometimes Eclipse can be annoying, and if you don't save stuff you get an error when there isn't really an error. Now in the connect method I've got to just do two pretty simple things. The first thing is I need to say class.forName, and here I'm going to dynamically load the class that is actually the MySQL Java connector driver. So in here I'm going to put com.mysql.jdbc.driver, and if I need to handle the exception around that, because it throws a class not found exception, and I'm going to throw that out of my connect method saying let's just throw new, let's just make it new exception, driver not found, like that, and I need to say throw new exception. And if I save that, now I can add a throws declaration. Actually, after I add the semicolon, I can add a throws declaration to connect, and now I'm forced to handle that where I use it. So here I can say add surround with try catch, and then here I can say yeah, let's just leave it with e.print stack trace for the moment. So I'll see an error if it can't load that driver, and if I run it now I'm going to see that error because the driver's not found. And what I need to do is right click my project here, go to build path, and in like NetBeans, for example, you have to right click and go to properties, I think, and you find a similar thing there. And I need to go to libraries. I'm going to go to add external jar, because the jar is not actually in my project folder, and if it was, I'd say add jar. And let's go to the location where I put the jar file that contains the driver. So go to tutorial swing, scroll down here, here's the MySQL connector, and now if I run this, I don't get the error because it's actually managed to load the class, which is good. Now the second thing that I need to do here is I need to actually get the database connection. So for a moment I'll just say connection con equals driver manager dot get, let's add the imports there. So I need Java SQL connection, and I need to say driver manager dot get and get connection, and we're going to use the form that has the username and the password. Now the first argument here is a kind of connection URL string, and it looks something like this. So let's say string connection URL. I'm not sure if URL is quite the right term. I think it is actually, but that's going to look like this. JDBC, the name of the technology I'm using to connect, and I'm going to connect to a MySQL database, and then we have it looks a bit like a drive specification. So if I remember rightly, it's : / and then we need local host, because I'm connecting on this machine in this case, and you might want to make that configurable in your application, of course. And it's going to run on port 3306, and later on we're going to get these connection details from the actual dialog, where you can specify the preferences dialog, where you can specify these details. And then finally, I've got a database set up already called I think it's called swing test. So this specifies where and how to connect to your database, and if you have Oracle, of course, it's going to be slightly different. And that's the first argument here, connection URL. In fact, let's just call it URL. So make that URL. And now I need the username, which is going to be root. And in the real world, you probably don't want to connect using your root user. You probably want to set up a user especially for your database and connect using that with restricted privileges. And I'm going to use my root password here, which is this extremely cryptic string, although I don't know why, because the port is not even open to the outside world, so it probably doesn't matter too much. And then we're going to paste the password in there, and then we'll see if we can connect or not. So if if this can't connect, it's going to throw a SQL connection, which is it's going to throw an SQL exception, which will be thrown out of my connect method here as an exception. So because I'm using the base exception class here, of course this can any exception can be thrown from there, which is perhaps not best practice, but it'll do for now. And if I run this now, you can see there's no exception, so we assume that we've connected successfully. And now I'm going to take this connection object here, and let's say I'm going to just put in a few refinements here, and then we'll leave the rest for the next tutorial. But I'll say private connection con there. So we'll connect there, and then in disconnect I'll say if con is not equal to null, then we're going to call con.close. And that throws an exception too, and I'm just going to surround that with a try catch, and I'm just going to put a sys out, I think, can't close connection, so I don't care so much about that exception. And in my connect method, I'm going to say if con is not equal to null, then I'm just going to return and not do anything. So I want to make it safe to call connect multiple times there. And for the moment, I'm just going to put sys out here, sys out connected, and just so that we can see, I'm just going to put let's output the connection object as well. So if I run that now, you can see it says connected, and this is the toString method on the connection object. And let's delete that now. So that's it for this tutorial. I'm just going to leave it with connecting to the database, and in the next tutorial we're going to look at retrieving data from the database. In fact, maybe it makes more sense to look first at saving data. So we can look at saving data, and then after that we can look at retrieving data. So join me again next time, and until next time, happy coding.